to this demo of getting to know a managed security operations center. We are part of Canon Business Services in the Information Security Solutions team. But just before we start, just some housekeeping for this session. You'll note that your mics are automatically muted for this webinar. We're going to be recording as well. But if you've got any questions, please feel free to send them in through the chat box, and we'll address them at the end of the session. Aaron will be taking note of all the questions that are coming in, and we'll try and get to as many as we can. So the speaker for today is Aaron, who's our security operations team lead here at Canon Business Services. So he runs a team which is a 24/7 SOC, and we've got a lot of great analysts in our team, led by Aaron. And I'm the head of information security solutions here at Canon Business Services. And on the next screen, I'll show you our team structure. So we've got a security consulting division and a security operations center. So under consulting, we do security assessments, security uplift, GRC related projects and consulting activities as well. And under Aaron, we've got the 24/7 security operations center based in Australia over here. And we also do vulnerability monitoring and vulnerability management as a service. Our team is highly accredited and certified as well. So we are Microsoft solution partners for security. We hold 3 advanced specializations in cloud security, identity and access management, and threat protection. We are a member of MISA. We are also a network partner for the ASD. So we got a lot of threat intel from these various organizations. The team itself is highly credentialed and highly qualified, not just in Microsoft related security certifications, but also industry-wide certifications like CSSP, CISM, and a lot of certifications from CompTIA as well. Security is not the only thing that CBS does. CBS does a lot of different things across various verticals. We've got our managed services team. We've got cloud services, business process optimization. There's transformation services, office services, as you'll see on here. I won't go into the details, but just to give you an idea of the length and breadth of all our various services. And as I come to the end of that slide, I may just hand over quickly to Aaron to start the demonstration. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Daniel. And thanks for everyone for taking the time out to come. I am Aaron, as was already alluded to before. I'm the leader of the security operations team here at CBS. We use a lot of the Microsoft stack to perform what we do on a day-to-day basis. But like Daniel said, there's a lot of different technologies that we have and that we utilize. But I'll be primarily focusing on the Microsoft Sentinel solution that we use for our SIEM monitoring. We use that across our SOC team. Before we jump into that, though, I just wanted to ask if you guys have the ability to, if you just want to react and raise your hand, if you have any idea at all what a SOC is and what they do. Just with the react, just raise your hand real quick, and then that'll give me a good idea of where we're at. And also, again, if you have any other questions, as we go through, feel free to use the Q&A tab at the top of the Teams window. Type in anything that you have any questions about or anything that you want me to clarify, and then we'll go into more detail. I'll answer through those questions towards the end, so I'll make sure to leave enough time for that. Cool. So a few people chuck their hands up. Yeah, like I said, if at any point things aren't making sense, or if you want me to clarify anything, definitely make use of that Q&A section we have available. Awesome. So I'm going to go through. So what I wanted to talk about first is basically give you more of an understanding of what a SOC does, because we do lots of different things, like all related to security, obviously, but we're kind of like the main hub for security in your environment. So we have a team of people that are dedicated to cybersecurity. They're the kind of people that get excited about logs, excited about new technologies in computers that most people will never see, and they're all dedicated to making sure we understand your environment and also understand the behavior of your devices and the people in that environment. And one of the ways that we do that is by collecting all the information in the environment in the form of logs. So we set up the SIEM solution in a way that we kind of contour it or configure it for your specific environment, because we know that every environment is different. Every business is different. You have different technologies. You might even have technologies you don't know about until you start engaging with us and we start pointing out all these different things that we can see in the environment. So one of the ways we tackle the complexity of environment is with data connectors. So these are different sets of data collection containers. And as you see, I've got a screenshot here with a list of all the different, an example of some of the different ones we can have. The key here, though, is that we can kind of set up to connect to any type of data. We can set up custom connectors. We have a lot that we already have pre-configured for a lot of different technologies. So if you're running Amazon Web Services, if you're running VMware or any kind of proprietary software that you want security, visibility, and risk management over, we can set that up, we can get it integrated, we can get it connected. And that is really the key for a really, really good SOC, is the availability to get the context of an entire environment, no matter what kind of technology exists in that environment, and no matter how people use that environment. And I'll go a little bit into it a little bit more detail later about the user side of things, but I thought I'd give you guys an example of what it looks like with an environment that has a lot of different information. And the reason why that's important is because when you do SOC monitoring, it's not just enough to have the visibility on, say, every network device. It's not enough just to have visibility on every computer that someone might bring to work. We also need to understand the technology in the environment and how to monitor that in an effective way, so that if anything happens, not only can we see it when it happens, but we will be able to detect things that could potentially happen. And that is super important as well for risk management, because you can't really manage risk on parts of an environment that you cannot see. So that is the main goal of a SOC, is to collect all the information from an environment and then have a dedicated team using really, really smart technology, which I'll go into a little bit more later, and also really, really smart people. And that is also a key combination as well. Behavior and people and how they use environments is a big focus for us. And also the technology that we use, we also make sure that that is basically as up to date and as cutting edge as possible. So you'll see some AI things chucked in here and there, but don't get too distracted by that. I'll be sure to make sure it makes sense in the context of the SOC. But yeah, it's definitely a combination between people and technology. So this is an example of some data connectors. So I've set this up so you can kind of see the volume of data we can collect just from one particular type of technology. So Azure Active Directory is now called Entra ID, but this will be all the data coming in from when someone logs in, when someone changes their password, when someone logs in on a new device, anything that a user does or a customer does or a staff member does to access the environment. We can collect that in the form of this data connector. So that is obviously a lot of information. So I've picked that one out for you to have a closer look at. And as you can see right now, there's hundreds of thousands of logs coming in, and that's just one of the very many data connectors that I have in this example. So we're collecting a lot of data in your environment in this example. So how do we move through that data in a meaningful way to give you up-to-date, accurate information about what's happening in your environment, whether it's risk-free, possibly risky, or definitely some suspicious behavior coming into the environment. And I'm also going to go into more detail a little bit further on about that as well. So we have a lot of data. This is a closer look at how the data connectors are kind of set up. We can obviously go into a little bit more detail later about that, but I just wanted to give a quick overview. And that way, if you guys have any specific questions about what you're seeing, about the technology, we can go more into that later. But I just wanted to give you a brief overview right now. So we're collecting a lot of information, and analytics is one of the key tools that we use to make sure that all of this information, nothing's getting left out. We collect gigabytes and gigabytes of data in some environments. Maybe in your environment is very similar. Maybe it's a lot smaller. That's okay, because our analytic rules are set up and we tune them specifically for the environment that they're sitting in. So what are analytic rules? Well, these are a set of, I guess, predefined searches that we run on the environment. So these searches are much like if you have any experience with databasing or anything like that, it's like when you do a search on Google, but it's way, way, way more nerdier, and it runs either all the time, on a schedule, or it can run based on an event. So it's super customizable, which is why we have a really good stack of analytics that we have ready to deploy in an environment that will give you meaningful insights. So this is an example of some analytics, and I'll just quickly click through, and you can see we have a bunch straight out of the box. And you'll also notice that, I don't know if you'll be able to see quite clearly, but some of them are very, very specific. Like we're looking for specific indicators of suspicious activity for very specific things like ransomware, like password spray attacks, like anything that is emerging or has emerged in the cybersecurity space. We have an analytic rule that will be able to detect it as soon as it is existing in any given environment. So that's a pretty powerful tool that we use. And basically, those analytic rules are constantly running in your environment, looking at the millions of gigabytes, maybe millions of logs in an environment. And so what happens when those analytic rules see something suspicious or potentially suspicious? That's when our team comes in. So this is an example of an environment with 100 open incidents. So what we see here is a lot of different things to do with logins, a lot of different things to do with potentially risky IP addresses that it's seen in the environment. All of these are obviously very, very important insights into what is happening in your environment specifically. And then this is where the people come in. So we have a team that will click through, that will do searches, that will view this incident screen, that will view the environment 24/7. So once we get to the point where we're starting to get some alerts, we're starting to get some activity, we're starting to understand the environment better, we'll get these alerts that come through. And what we can do is we can actually pull all the relevant information pretty quickly just from what our SIEM solution is able to gather on its own. So it does its own little hunting. It figures out, oh, we've seen this risky activity. In this case, it is someone has tried to access the dark web, for lack of a better term. And we've got a description, we've got the user that performed the activity, we've got their IP address, we've got the device that they used to perform this action, we've got the application that performed that action. So we can very quickly start to understand the context of this specific example. And that's really, really important. I would say that it's not really enough just to kind of set and forget this solution. You really need a team of passionate cybersecurity people to click through, to do the hunting themselves, to understand the context of this single alert. So looking at it just from, I guess, face value, it seems that this person has just accessed this IP address, and we don't really have much context around that. So this isn't really enough to give you a meaningful insight into the risk that we've identified in this environment. So what our team will do, will look through and perform some searches on the environment. And this is getting a little bit technical, so feel free to ask some questions if you want a little bit more of an explanation of what you're looking at right now. But this is a great example of an analytic rule. So it performs a search on the environment consistently. And in this case, we've found something. So it comes back with all the relevant information, all the relevant logs for that user, anything that has absolutely anything to do with this event will be seen here. And this is specifically helpful for our team because we can use that to contextualize what's happening here. That way, when we communicate with you what's happening in the environment, you also get that context as well. And then that insight is shared, and it's a win-win because we're all learning more about the environment, we're all understanding the risk, and we're also all understanding why this activity is happening in the environment. So this user seems to have some risky logins as well. There's definitely something interesting happening with Annette here. This is the name of the user. So what we can do is start hunting. So we understand that there's some risky behavior happening here. Well, what can we really do about it? So thanks to the SIEM solution, Sentinel allows us to really get in depth with how far we can look into an environment. And also it really, really helps with correlating events. Let's assume that if this person's contacting the dark web, it's probably not the only risky thing they've done on the environment before, but it's definitely something to note. So we hunt, we dig deeper, we have a look at this user. We can see a lot of events that this user has performed, and that helps us understand the context of why they're accessing this darknet or Tor IP. So I'll quickly go through another way outside of the technical, which I've kind of gone over a little bit, is the entity behavior. So what that means is when we see logs come through, there's always going to be either a device or a person that this activity that we see is originating from. And in this case, obviously, this example that I've picked out, Annette, has been doing some naughty things in the environment. So we want to really analyze this user. That's what we would focus on as a SOC team. We were trying to understand the user. What's their role? What do they have access to? What are their permissions? Have they changed recently? Have they been signing in from a different country? Are they allowed to sign in from a different country? Were they successful? There's a lot of questions that can come up when you start to look at a user's behavior, and the team and the tool that I'm kind of presenting right now, the entity behavior analytic tool, can really, really help with looking through the massive amounts of data that your environment might have and really hone in on the user's behaviors in the environment. So what we can do is we can look for the user's IP address, which we gathered when we first saw this alert. And then we can see, oh, it's Annette's computer. Okay, so let's take a look at all the activity that this particular computer has been generating in the environment. So you see a lot of graphs, you see a lot of some sign-in activities on the right-hand side. This is super, super helpful for us because obviously if you're working in an environment that is fast-paced or that has, say, a financial institution where there's a lot of activity happening on each of the computers, lots of people doing lots of great work, you can get a lot of information that you don't necessarily need. So in this case, this helps us really understand what is happening with this particular user, regardless of what device they're on, regardless of what time of the day it is or what they do. We can analyze specifically the behavior of this user because when we first deploy into an environment, we take about 30 days where we use the Azure Sentinel Analytics Behavior Engine to view all the information that's coming in, and we set a baseline. That way, when someone performs an activity or a sign-in, or even maybe they forgot their password a few too many times, we can get that information as soon as it could potentially be risky before it's already a risk to the environment. And that enables our team to be proactive. We will give you informational emails and packets that can have a better view over each part of your environment instead of just the actions that are performed on the environment. So I'm sure that you've already seen this slide because I went back a little bit, but basically we can look at the user, we can see all this information that's being gathered, which is super important for when our team is looking into exactly what's happening with this. Why is someone accessing a Tor node? Why is someone accessing this risky IP address that has nothing to do with their normal day-to-day activity? And then also, oh, I went too far, I apologize. We'll just go back to the other slide. I don't know if it's going to be here anymore because I got all mixed up, but that's all right. The main point that I wanted to get across is that with behavior analytics and the people that we can bring to the table, thanks to our SOC team, we can be a lot more proactive with risk. We can also be a lot more targeted in the information we give you. And not only will your environment obviously be monitored by us, but you'll understand a lot more in depth through analytics that we can provide, graphs, all that fancy stuff, but also the people. You'll understand the people a lot more because you'll be able to see the environment in not just what is risky, but what could potentially be risky. And that's definitely a key point that I wanted to bring up. Hopefully the audio is still working, but yes, in conclusion, it definitely is a lot about the people that we bring
And this is the best way that I think we can get all of you, if you are interested, involved in what we can do, and also in a way that is very, very low commitment and very, very low risk for yourself. So I'm happy to just quickly go over our offerings, and then maybe if anyone has any questions specifically about the offerings, Daniel can answer those, or we can transition over to that. But one of the main things that I wanted to present to you guys is the threat protection engagement. It's really, really awesome because if you qualify, Microsoft will fully fund us installing our Sentinel solutions in your environment, as if you were already a customer of ours, and you can see the tool at work in your environment. We can show you the analytics it collects specifically for your environment. You can see how in depth we can go in, and the information and analytics we can provide for you, and that proactive risk prevention live in your environment for no risk at all, because you're not giving any money to us specifically. So definitely let us know if you're interested in that, and we can figure out if you qualify quite easily. But that is definitely something that I want to point you guys towards if you're interested and you want to learn more. Yeah, and basically that is the whole part for myself. I'm happy to go through the questions now. I'll just quickly pull those up if there were any. They're probably just a bunch saying that we can't hear you, but I'll do my best to go through them. Okay, sweet. Awesome. So if there aren't any other questions, I'm happy to pass over to Daniel now, if that works. And yeah, this is pretty much the contact information there. And also, if at any time you have more questions, please feel free to email us, and we can even set up a one-on-one demo, some more Q&As. If you have some questions about it, I can go into more depth for maybe your environment specifically, and we can see what fits and what doesn't fit and what we can do for you, more on a kind of personal level instead of this webinar setting. So please contact us if you have any questions at all. Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Aaron, and thanks everyone for joining. I think Aaron gave us a great demo and touched on a lot of things there. And like he mentioned, if you have any questions or you want to reach out to us to explain anything in more detail, or if you want to learn more about any of our offerings, not just in the SOC, but also our consulting services, please feel free to reach out. You've got the contact details on screen there. But yeah, it was great. Thank you for sharing your time with us today. It was great presenting to you, and hope you have a great day ahead and a great rest of the week. Thanks a lot.
Also, sorry, I just saw Brett asked a question. For the licensing requirements, it depends on what you're looking for as a solution, because Microsoft provides a lot of different products inside of Defender, and that depends on your licensing level. So what we can do is send you an email with all the information, if that works better for you, just for the sake of time as well. But also I want you to have that detailed information so you can make the right choice for the different kinds of products that Microsoft has in their security ecosystem.